Well, you know, to be fair, brother, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants and people who have done this work and research over the last 30, 40, 50 years. So let me not act as if this is anything original on my part. I'm not reinventing the wheel, but collating the information that, you know, other studious persons have done and have helped me to basically create a picture. So can we just put up the first slide? Something that's familiar to all of us will recognize this picture. And of course, this is the continent of Africa as you're looking at it. Now, what's really interesting is that whenever history is discussed, or certainly the history of black people are always told, you are from Africa. If you see a medieval portrait with, you know, perhaps a countess and there's a black girl in it, they tell you, oh, that's probably an African servant, or you know, a slave, and she was brought to Europe where she was looked after. And for black people, actually, telling them that they are solely out of Africa is probably one of the biggest cons ever perpetrated on the minds of black people. Because what we're not taught, of course, is that yes, the original man came out of Africa, but the original man, black man, was all over the world.
Interesting.
Now we can prove this with the next slide. It's a very short video, and let's see what this gentleman has to say.
The original hunter-gatherers to come to Britain and Ireland were black. So say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. So-called Cheddar Man, a hunter-gatherer and one of the first people to populate the islands of Britain and Ireland, turns out to have dark skin, black hair and blue eyes. Now this shouldn't come as a surprise to most Irish people. If you look around Ireland today, it's evident that the...
There you go. So here's a gentleman admitting, right, that the original Irish, and we know, of course, on the British Isles, the original man was a dark-skinned man called Cheddar Man. So how is it that in our life we're constantly seeing paintings that don't feature very many black people, if at all?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer to the question is the next slide. Most of the famous works of art that we've seen from history are fraudulent. They are fake. And doesn't that make sense? Why? Because if the first man of these islands was a dark-skinned person, well, why wouldn't the rulers, the monarchs, kings and queens of this country also be dark-skinned? Let's move on. Here is an interesting picture. Of course, this is not a black man, but this man his name is Charles Lenox. Right?
Lenox is a black name. Definitely, Lenox is a black name.
If you Google this man's name, this is the picture that you will see.
Okay.
Next slide. This man here, called John Mackey, wrote a book, and he's a contemporary, right, of Charles Lenox. And in his book, he actually describes Charles Lenox. Next slide. Notice at the very bottom where he underlines. Can you see it?
Well-shaped, black complexion, much like King Charles.
So John Mackey, a contemporary, and he was a spy working for the Secret Service, described Charles Lenox as a dark-skinned person, much like his father. Who was his father? King Charles II. So we go from looking at what we think are original paintings of white European kings and queens, but the reality is they've admitted a lot of those paintings are fake, and then the contemporaries of these characters tell you that they were black. Next slide. Now this is the King Charles II, who is supposed to be the father of the previous character who was described as black. Does this character look black to you? Did this character father a black Charles Lenox?
Wow,
Next slide.
Wow.
or did this character father him? This is Charles II. His nickname was the Black Boy. For those of you who've driven through Tottenham and driven down Black Boy Lane, or you've gone to have a drink at the Black Boy Inn, this is the person who has that name. That's his nickname, Charles II, Black Father of Charles Lenox that we just previously saw. The paintings that we looked at before are fakes. Next slide. Last week, for those of you who are listening, we quickly looked at some queens, didn't we? The one on the far left is Queen Charlotte of Great Britain and Ireland, who ruled between 1808 and 1818. She sat on the British throne. The lady in the middle, everybody knows, that's Queen Victoria. That's actually her granddaughter. That's the granddaughter of Charlotte. And the lady on the right is Princess Victoria of Prussia. She is the granddaughter of Queen Victoria.
Wow.
So before Queen Victoria came, there was black DNA. And after Queen Victoria, there's black DNA. So what's going on here, people? Why are we not taught this history in our schools? What do you think's going on?
It's a whitewash, man.
Answers on a postcard, please. And the interesting thing about this, you see, is that both oh goodness me, Charlotte, right? Her origins are German, right? She's actually from Germany. And Princess Victoria on the far right, her father is a guy called Frederick III, who was the German emperor. So what is this? What's this all about? Well, we have black British and we have black Germans. Next slide. You may not realize it, but obviously the royal family are known as the House of Windsor. They changed their name, right, because of sentiments during the war, because their original name is German, right? It's Saxe-Coburg-Gotha. That is their real surname, right? Now, Coburg the Saxe-Coburg-Gotha is an area in Germany. Next slide. This is the crest of the area called Coburg.